Today is all about warming up our scripts for spring market. My goal is that it's interactive, it's collaborative, because that's how scripts should be, right? Is interactive and collaborative. A little bit about me for those that don't know my background. I'm Shelly Holz. I run and lead the Holz group. We're a team of 12. Last year we closed 155 units for about 64 million in volume, and about 60% of our business is sellers. So we took more listings than we've ever taken in our real estate career last year in inventory market. That was the tightest market. So I share that just, to prove and say it can be done. And we all know that sellers are a huge part of what we are lead generating for, because if we have the seller, we're automatically going to have the buyers. So that's my goal today, is to really dive into what are we hearing from sellers? What are you guys hearing on the phone? And or just what are some things you just want to get better at to tee yourself up for spring market? So I have some ideas on some scripts that work really, really well for our team that I'm going to share with you guys today in this hour. But to start off, I just want to hear from everyone, and I'm going to create a running list on the board of what are the objections, what are you hearing on the phone at the end of this hour? What do you want to feel like you have more clarity on as far as a script, and or some new scripts to just implement in your business right away?
I'm hearing, well, if I have to sell in this market, I have to buy in this market.
Okay. So people don't want to buy in this market?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
They're like, oh yeah, I know my home has increased in value, but then where am I I don't want to be homeless. What if I can't find a home?
Yes, where am I gonna live in between?
Yeah. Where am I gonna live in between?
Sure. Okay. What else are you guys hearing that you want to tackle today for class? Anything extra you'd add?
I just need to get sellers.
Okay, well, today's class is going to be perfect for that. How about on the screen, our virtual friends? What do you guys want? What are you hearing? What scripts do you want to really dive in and tackle?
I think that one that's on the board is the biggest one that I am hearing is not only, where am I going to live, but if I'm going to make a lot on my home, I know that I'm also going to be, am I going to be overpaying for a property?
Okay. Got it.
I go to buy it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Sounds good.
They know how competitive it is.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
I have one too with just overpricing in the market.
Mm-hmm.
So like, oh yeah, I'll sell my home if you can get me this. Or like, oh yeah, I can definitely list it for this. People are going to come anyways.
So unrealistic.
Unrealistic overpricing.
Okay.
Maybe put in what is it called? The estimate.
Right. Okay. Okay. Sounds good. Anything else?
I think I've heard some people too say that they feel like they've already missed the wave. Like, oh, I know interest rates are going up and maybe I should have done it last year and maybe I'll stay put now.
Okay. Awesome. This is all good stuff. I'm loving it.
Something like we're interviewing a couple of different agents.
Okay. Sounds good. Anything else we to add to the list to make sure we dive into? We good? All right. So I find the trickiest part about January is really getting a common understanding about spring market. Because I know for me as an agent, and this may ring true for all of you guys, like holidays are done, where our business plan is set, our vision boards are up, we're energized, we're ready to go, we're ready to get some numbers on the board. So for us, it's spring market. And to our people, they're not necessarily tracking with us. Is that the reality for anyone on the screen or in this room? Okay. Because that's one that is just regardless of market conditions, it's just a seasonality hurdle. So I definitely want to address that as well. That's usually how kind of we start the conversations in January on our team. Is there's only 2 questions that matter most when you're lead generating for anyone is, when is it your ideal time frame to make a move? And how is your next home going to be different than your current home? You start the conversation. If you had to pick between the 2, the most important question is, when is it your ideal time frame to make a move? Now, in these market conditions, we're probably going to get one of 2 answers. I'm not moving because of the market, or scared of the market, or, well, we're not ready yet, we're waiting till spring. So I first want to tackle the spring, and then we're going to dive into the market. So one of the things that I love when people say in January they're waiting till spring, because it tees me up to ask my next series of questions. So the next question we ask on our team, and we call this just our spring market script. When we say, oh, awesome. So when you say spring, are you talking trees, green grass, flowers, trees, and bunnies? Or are you talking real estate spring? And it immediately throws them off because they're like, well, wait a second. Aren't they one and the same? So they open the door for you to educate them to say, well, no, real estate spring is really just post holidays. And it really starts up right around the Super Bowl. As a matter of fact, the Super Bowl is only 3 weeks away. So all of our sellers are actually setting up interviews now to get started. So I've taken it from them thinking spring means maybe April, May, to Super Bowl, which is only 3 weeks away. So I've condensed their time frame, and I've created a sense of urgency for them to realize they're actually behind. It's January, it's below 0 wind chill, but it's really spring. And so you help condense the time frame for them to feel like they're behind, so you can get them to engage in maybe what are some more underlying objections that they have. So if someone's going to resist or they doubt, the concept that spring market really means January, that people are taking action right now. Whether or not people are taking action on the phone, you say people are taking action because if you just look at the market, people are taking action. There's pending properties going left and right on the MLS every day. And so I just always explain to them something visual. Most humans are visual learners. And so I just explain, well, the Super Bowl is really exciting. You can see all the billboards, the advertising for it. What happens after the Super Bowl? All those billboards and advertisements come down, and then the Parade of Homes billboards come up. Have you ever driven around the highways and see all these billboards for the Parade of Homes? You go into gas stations and you see the Parade of Home magazines. They're like, well, yeah, as a matter of fact, I guess I do. They're like, well, the builders know that spring market happens right around the Super Bowl, so that's why they do it. So the more you can kind of create a case study to help them understand everyone else is taking action, the quote unquote experts where home builders are taking action, so they should be taking action too, the more that they're going to be open-minded to that. So that's how we really get people to be willing to take action a little bit sooner. Now we are hearing, just like you guys are all hearing, well, that's all great, but where would I go? There's nothing on the market. So this is just where we are going to give ourselves the freedom and the flexibility to recognize our sellers are also buyers. So anytime we're in the mindset of I'm lead generating for sellers and I want a listing appointment, it's really important in these market conditions to give ourselves grace that we may have to address them as buyers first. So this last year, we did that on our team. And we just said, if a seller is also going to be buying and they're stuck around being homeless, around the fear of the market, whether it's, we have all these things on here, being homeless, overpaying, you may not appraise, crazy multiple offers, whatever they're saying. I want you guys to give yourself permission to pivot from your seller scripts to your buyer scripts. Because in this market, we've found we can't unlock a seller and get a seller into action unless we address whatever their fear or objection is, which is really just they're terrified of being the home buyer. So it used to be asking the questions, well, do you need to sell before you can buy? Or can you buy a home and you're going to get the equity from a different spot, another bank account, like you don't need the equity out of your home. I like to clarify that instead of just asking, are you going to buy first or are you going to sell first? Because most of the time, if I say, well, can you buy, are you going to buy before you sell, or do you have to sell in order to buy? Most people don't understand what it takes, right? So I think it's really important to clarify for people, do you need the equity out of your current home in order to use as the down payment of your next home? Or are you going to get cash for your down payment in a different account outside of your house? And that's how you get the real answer that you're looking for. And you're creating the real conversation you want. I used to lead a lot sooner in the conversation with that question. And now I'm kind of putting it on pause because I recognize if they have to sell before they buy, but they're terrified to buy, I'll never get them into action. So when they say something like what we have on our board, well, yeah, I was thinking about it. I was planning on spring, but we're not going to do it anymore. We put it all on hold. I love the question of, oh, what changed? With just a simple inflection of your voice, like you act shocked, like, wow, what changed? When we spoke in November, you were thinking about spring and 2022, what happened and what changed? Very common right now to be hearing in the market, well, there's just nothing on the market. And I could sell my house, but there's nothing out there for me to buy. So yeah, we're just putting it on hold. So it's just like, you're just going to give yourself permission to pivot, and you're now talking to them as a buyer. And here are some questions we ask on our team to unlock people and just get them like expanding their mind a little bit. Just be like, okay, so sounds like you've been tracking the market. What do you know about the real estate market? I'm just going to ask them a general question. Because I don't know where they're locked up. I don't know where they're getting their source of information. I just know they're paralyzed by fear. So I just need to get them talking. Tell me what you know about the market. Well, there's nothing. We've been tracking. We have these e-alerts set up. Nothing's popping on the market. It's like, okay, well, where are you searching? How are you finding out about homes? It's a really powerful question that you really need to ask every single person. How are you finding out about homes? Because you're going to tee up where we're going to take this script. Because we have the power and the knowledge. We're tempted to talk at leads, talk at people. Self-discovery and changing your beliefs and viewpoints doesn't happen by being talked at. It happens by thinking. So questions are going to activate our leads thinking. So yes, how are you finding out about homes? Well, I have a search on Zillow and Realtor.com. Like, okay, great. And so given the shift in the market, I'm sure you've sensed there's quite a shift in the market. It's pretty intense out there, right? So you're getting them to engage in that dialogue. They're like, yeah. There's a huge shift in the market. They say, great, given the shift in the market and so much of the properties are selling so quickly and are selling before they even hit the market, What are you doing to shift how you search for homes, given the internet is now old school? They are naturally gonna say, well, I'm just looking on the internet. And be like, oh, okay. So what are you doing to find properties that aren't even on the market? What are you doing to find properties that other buyers know about that, wouldn't you want to know about those coming soon properties too? And you help them self-discover that they are missing out. Because here's the reality. We all know that just sitting back for an email alert about a new listing does not work in this market. But the public still thinks that's where they get information. That's just how they've been trained for years, since the MLS went online way back in 2000. Like, I'm dating myself big time, but that was like the new thing. But think of it, all other industries. Like, if you want a car, what do? You go on the internet. If you want to search something at Target, you go online. People are buying things online left and right. That's just how society is. The pandemic just amplified that. But it's our job as fiduciaries in this industry to help people self-discover that if they are only using the internet, they are missing out big time. So questions help them self-discover that. What are you doing to find homes? How are you searching for homes? Sounds like you've experienced a shift in the market. So given the shift, what are you doing to shift with it? You forcing them to say, they have to say the words out of their mouth, well, nothing. I'm not doing anything different. You need to get the conversation to that point. So then you can turn it and say, well, given how competitive the market is right now, the people that are actually winning and taking action are partnered with professionals. They're actually have a partnership where they're going to learn about things coming to the market before they even hit the market. And they're the first ones in the door. And they're the ones that are actually taking part in the action. So have you had any conversations with any real estate professionals about how to play to win in this market and how to get ahead of the competition in this market? 9 times out of 10, they're going to say, no, I haven't had a conversation yet. And you've just teed yourself up for an appointment. Now, in these market conditions, you likely need to do a buying consult in conjunction with a CMA. Because you can tell them what their home is worth all day long, what you're going to do for staging, all the amazing photography you're going to do, right? You have a whole plan. But that doesn't matter if they feel like you're going to kick them out of their home and make them homeless. So just as important to walk into their home and talk to them about what is your plan to find them off-market opportunities? What are you going to do different than the MLS or Zillow? Because they already have the MLS and or Zillow, and it's not working for them, right? So we're going to help them self-discover, well, if you want to play to win, you actually need this game plan. You need this playbook. The internet's out of date. The internet was yesterday. And you just get them, your job is to just get them into a possibilities mindset. Right? Because if you, in your follow-up calls, if you've learned someone was motivated, they wanted to take action, they had a true desire, and now they're seized up in fear, you just need to open the door, show them the possibility, and then go back to that motivation to say, hey, having that bigger home for the dog to run in a yard, a fenced yard, instead of taking it out on a leash in an association maintained neighborhood where you just have rocks, you can't even let your dog run. Like, if I could get you into a home where your dog could run and your family could have more space, do you see how this plan is going to help you get there in these market conditions? So that's a huge part. You have to name the homelessness and you have to have a plan outside of the MLS, outside of the e-alert searches, the neighborhood news command updates that you're setting them up on. So let's brainstorm a little bit as a group. What could be part of your plan? What could be part of the I promise I will not make you homeless plan? Shout out any ideas.
I think you could kind of explain that it's not just you that they're getting, they have a whole team here. I mean, that
Absolutely.
talks about what they have coming up.
Yeah. So when you hire me, when you partner with me, those are really key embedded commands. There's a class called Language of Sales at Keller Williams, and they talk about embedded commands. So you say, when you partner with me, you're actually going to have access to a whole team of 170 agents that all networks about their properties that are coming soon, that other people don't know about. That's powerful. That's awesome. What else could we be sharing that we would be doing when they hire us to take the leap of faith on us because their dreams matter? Anyone on the screen? You're all muted. I know you're brilliant minds that have amazing ideas. What if we applied the concept of expired prospecting? What if you got their home search criteria, and instead of only looking for actives on the MLS, you search canceled and expireds with that same criteria. And you say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, when you partner with me, I am going to take the criteria you're looking for, and I'm going to network with all of the sellers who failed to sell that match this criteria. And I'm going to work really, really hard to find you a match with someone that's not even on the market yet, to eliminate the competition that you have to be competing with. Because if we're willing to call canceled and expireds for listing appointments and seller lead generation, why not just use that as a buyer home search tool as well? Another option, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, when you partner with me, I'm going to send letters to the neighborhoods that you want. If there's a certain target area, target spot that you have that you want, part of my plan is I'm actually going to proactively get into relationship and network with the neighbors in the key neighborhoods that you want. Now, it's just my clients that get this premier level service. Are you willing to become a client? And we don't give this type of service away for free, right? They have to commit, they have to sign contracts with us, right? And we just really work on helping them understand we're just not gonna wing it. We're just not gonna operate purely on faith and hope, because we all know faith and hope isn't a strategy. But we take them through the I promise I will not make you homeless plan during the listing appointment. If you're on the phone and you're trying to convert this this person into just the idea of meeting, anytime that you have plans like this, and you name it whatever you want, I'm just calling it the I promise not to make you homeless plan. Fill in the blank with your creative brand on what you're going to call this strategy and plan. But you just say, hey, I totally respect and can appreciate how you have a lot of uncertainty about this market. Have you heard about my I promise not to make you homeless plan? Chances are they haven't, right? At the Holz group, we call it our next home guarantee. Have you heard about our next home guarantee? No, I haven't. Well, awesome. When is a good time for us to get together so I can share with you how we will guarantee we will find you your next home and you will not be homeless. Does 2 or 4 work better for you? So we're speaking to that fear as part of the reason why they have to meet with us. Oh, well, can't you just tell it to me over the phone? Well, actually, it's a very custom plan based on what you need and want. And the stakes are too high in these market conditions, and your personal goals matter too much for us to just wing it, when it's a good time for us to just create that custom plan for you. So in these market conditions, there's just no way you can't speak to them as a buyer without, or speak to them as a seller without speaking them as a buyer. And sometimes you just have to put the CMA and the listing lingo, the listing conversation on hold until you hear in their voice, or if you're on the appointment, until you see on their face that they believe in possibility. Our job is to create hope for them, right? Fiduciary isn't just, I promise to follow the contractual language on the agency disclosure. In these market conditions, fiduciary also means I'm going to show you the way. I'm going to show you how people are winning and what it takes to win. Now, they may choose, like, I don't want to play in that sandbox. Like, that's too crazy. I'm opting out. And they have the right to do that. These are just the scripts you're going to use to earn the right to have the conversation. We're still going to qualify that lead, on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being you have to move. How important is it that we make this move? What's going to happen if you stay, right? We're still going to qualify, and we still know only the motivated are going to follow our lead. What's really important in these market conditions for you to have clarity as a salesperson, is it that they're unmotivated, or is it that they're just fearful? Because fear can show up as unmotivated. And we just need to have clarity at the end of those conversations. Are they motivated, but they're just paralyzed in fear? Because if they're motivated and paralyzed in fear, we can help them. We can never help someone who's not motivated. They have to bring that. So in these market conditions, sometimes the people that are like, well, yeah, if I could sell, I would, right? Like, they're just going to fall off. And that's okay, right? That's okay. One of the things that's super important too, just to embed in your scripts, with sellers who are scared about being homeless and not finding a home, is data. And just really, really being the market expert, being the economist of choice. And I'm going to share with you what I shared at our team meeting at the Holz group yesterday. We do our team meetings on Tuesdays afternoon. And we all, after we do our lead gen, right around 11:45, 12 noon, we always touch base, say, what did we hear on the phones? What objections got us tongue-tied? What were our wins? We're really collaborative, always sharing together. And predominantly a lot, people are like, oh, they're not moving because of the market. They don't want to be homeless. All the things we shared on a brainstorm. And so I just dug into some research in the data of the MLS and I just said, well, what's the activity kind of in our core market? Now, at the Holz group, we predominantly sell in Washington County, Dakota County, and Ramsey County. And we sell all over. We're licensed in Wisconsin too. But the majority of our business comes from those 3 counties. So it's like, well, how many homes have listed on the market just like in the last 2 weeks, like January 1 and to the end of last week? And there was 560 homes listed on the market. And so I was like, well, sellers are taking the leap of faith. They're putting their home on the market. There's 560 of them in just 3 counties over the course of 2 weeks. Then I got curious. I was like, well, how many are selling? So I searched by, all the contingency statuses you can have, active contingent on inspection, other, and all that. Because I was like, well, that means a seller accepted an offer of some kind. We don't know what the contingency is. And then I also looked at pending, what has gone pending since, on these properties that have listed since January 1, and there was 174. So I'm like, okay, of 560 listed in only 3 counties in 2 weeks, 174 have accepted an offer. That sounds like a lot of action, right? So it helped pull the team out of no one's taking action storyline that we can get stuck in our heads when all we hear over and over is, I'm waiting, this isn't the market for me. You name it, we hear it over and over again. And we're naturally going to be exposed to that because we're lead generating and the quality comes in the quantity. We have to be really careful that we're staying in reality, right? And that we're the market experts and bringing data to people to say, well, in reality, this is what's happening. So I challenge you all to do that for your cities, your counties, whatever your pond is, like your core market area that you work, that you're going to be having conversations with people on. And if you're doing a ton of sphere work and you're spread around the whole Twin Cities, well, then awesome. Just go to SPAR's website and pull up their weekly reports that they have. And SPAR already has it calculated for you. It's going to tell you how many have popped, how many homes have sold, how many have listed and how many have sold. And you can just use SPAR's data if you want to speak to like the whole 13 county metro area. But I tend to I have a lot of wicked storylines that run rampant in my head. And so I like to really just turn off all those storylines and say, well, what about my market that we majority work and know the facts and the data. So if you're like me, you can just pull up your counties, pull up your cities that you work and create the real storyline for yourself that, wow, there's a ton of opportunity. People are taking action. So when you hop on the phone and you're talking with people and they say, well, there's nothing on the market. I don't want to be homeless. Like, oh, okay, well, tell me more about that. Where are you tracking the market? Where are you getting your market information? I'm just curious. Just get them talking, right? Because the more people talk about themselves and their viewpoints, the more you're building rapport with them. You're building a bond with them. So your goal is just get them to ventilate, vent about the market. I'm like, awesome. Well, we sell a home, and find your stats, use the market center stats. Our team, we sell a home every 48 hours. So you can, if you don't have that sort of track record yet, that's okay. You're part of an amazing market center where you can just see, well, how many homes did the market center sell? And use the market center stats. But we just say, well, we sell a home every 48 hours. So we're really in tune with what's happening in the market. And we actually know that 560 homes listed just these last 2 weeks, and 174 of them already have accepted offers. When in the news sources that you're tracking, are you seeing that same sort of data? They're likely going to say no. I did not see that same sort of data. You ask the question to get them to trip a little bit on their limiting beliefs, right? You just say, well, no worries, totally get that. We're in the trenches, experiencing this every day. And really, in reality, it feels like there's nothing in the market. It feels like there's nothing happening in the market because the real facts are it's selling so quickly. It goes on Zillow and comes off of Zillow so fast you don't even see it happening. So it's not so much that there are no homes, Mr. and Mrs. Seller. It's that the homes are selling so quickly that if you're not in the trenches with a professional agent telling you about what's coming to the market, you're actually going to completely miss out. So just curious, when will you be scheduling interviews to partner with someone to tell you about properties that are coming to the market before they even hit the market? So you help them believe the storyline that it's the speed of the market is creating an illusion that there's nothing online. There's nothing on the market. The internet does not represent the market. The internet just represents shelf life, stuff that's stale and sitting on the market. And so the best buys come and go so quickly, you don't even see it in your searches. And or they're sold before they even hit the market. So Mr. and Mrs. Seller, just curious, what are you doing to find properties that aren't even on the market yet? And the more you can create that, like, wow, I'm not doing anything. I'm not equipped for this. Say, that's okay. I'd be honored to interview for the job. What's your schedule like? Always end it with, what's your schedule like, right? To create that conversation. So does that help with homelessness? Not having a home? Changing their storyline about that?
Very much.
Cool. We have to change our storyline about it, right? Right. And we're humans too. And so super powerful to just stay curious. Look at the SPAR stats, pull the stats for your city and create an actual real storyline that you can use as a case study in your conversations for sure. Let's dive into overpaying. Okay. So I am gonna, our majority of the people are people hearing this from their sellers. I just want to make sure that we're role playing and talking through a script that would work for the audience here. So is it mostly your sellers saying, well, yeah, I could sell my home for a great price, but then I have to become a buyer and pay and it's like crazy? Or is it just buyers that you guys are working with and they're not sellers? Give me some context so we can make sure to create a script that will work for you.
90% of the time I do hear it from buyers. I think the sellers are kind of like, I mean, like they're worried about overpaying, but they're like, hey, you know, as long as it's a bit different, as long as, you know, like if it equals itself out a little bit.
Right.
But I hear it more so from the buyer side.
How about you?
I'd just say that most of my buyers are like very much aware that they have to offer over.
Yeah.
Like they're just already educated from people they've talked to. They're like,
Mhm.
which is makes it easier to have that conversation.
Absolutely. How about everyone on the screen? Is it sellers who and like they're selling and buying, or are you running into it mostly with just only buyers, like first time buyers, renters? Because how I would address this, how I would combat this with a seller who's buying is different than a buyer only. That's why I'm asking.
I'm hearing it from sellers also.
Okay. So let's kind of dissect it. So I have a seller that's like, oh yeah, that's great. It's awesome. I could get an amazing price for my home, but I have to buy and the prices are crazy. My neighbor's home sold for 100 grand more than it should have, which yeah, awesome for me, but I'm not going to go and do that on my next house. That's crazy. What that just tells you is they're stuck in principle. They're principled people, which is okay. We're going to have compassion for that. All of us have our principles, right, that we can be blinded by. And so it's just our job as fiduciaries to help them unlock and not be blinded by that. So a question that I love to ask is to say, well, if your home goes for above what you feel is market value, and you just take that excess that you wouldn't have normally gotten, and you just transfer that excess over to the home you purchased, isn't it just a wash? It's kind of like when it was the opposite during the recession and sellers' homes were depreciating and the values were going down. And they're like, well, I'm not going to sell my house for a loss. That's crazy. Who does that? You just be like, okay, well, are you buying a home too? Well, yeah. Okay. So if you can find an amazing buy and now you've got that equity built in your purchase, isn't it just a wash? So if you were selling real estate during the time of the recession, it's the exact same script. You're just inverting it. So yeah, your home is going to go for premium. The price that you can get today is going to be higher than any other time. And I'm sure it's been really shocking to see what your neighbors' homes can be going for. You validate whatever they say. Say, and here's the awesome news, because you're also buying in this market, you're just gonna transfer that crazy excess money into your purchase. So it's really not your crazy extra money that you're putting down on your dream home. It's the buyer of your home's crazy extra money that you just get to shift and transfer over. So if you're borrowing someone else's crazy extra money to accomplish your goal, does it really matter? Who's funding that? You're not funding it. Your buyer's funding it. You're just moving it over to the next property. Are you willing to do that? So then you help them realize, like, wow, I'm just like playing a game with someone else's money, not even my money, and I get to win. Like, I get to be the beneficiary of this experience. It's going to unhook their principled nature really fast, because they're not going to feel that they're the one being taken advantage of. They just don't want to be the sucker, right? And you have to help them realize that that crazy excess money that they're getting isn't coming from their pocketbook. It's just, they're just the pass-through person. Now, if it's only a buyer, this is where we use what's happening with the interest rates to our benefit, right? Like, okay, yeah, I totally understand and can appreciate that you have that overpaying is certainly something that you've heard out there in the market. What else have you heard about the market? They're going to continue to say what they're going to say. Make sure they comment on interest rates. If they don't, you say, okay, well, tell me, what have you heard about interest rates? Have you heard that the Fed is anticipating 3 rate spikes in 2022? Are you aware of what interest rates does to your purchasing power? Say, well, for every just 1% increase in your purchasing power, that's going to affect the affordability of what you can buy in your sales price by like 4 or 5 times. And, are you open to us just running some numbers on what, since numbers sound like they're so important to you, would you be open to us just getting together and running a scenario on what your monthly payment would be in all the variety of numbers that are happening in today's market conditions? Numbers are really hard to just speak to over the phone, especially buyers that are maybe they're first-time home buyers. Just remember, 60% of people are visual. So use the running the numbers scenario as the reason why you're going to meet. Don't give it away over the phone. And then just do your homework and prepare for that appointment. Just run the numbers at different interest rates so they can see what could possibly happen. And then you just have to speak to, well, what do you think caused the prices to be so high? You educate them on supply and demand. What happens when you go into a grocery store and there's a shortage on avocados? What happens to the price of avocados? Well, say you want bananas and there's a ton of bananas. What does the grocery store do to the price of bananas? Real estate market is just like a grocery store. We have extreme supply and demand playing out for the public eye to see. You say, well, what do you think is going to fix the supply? Home builders aren't going to build like neighborhoods in days. How long do you think it will take to fix the supply so the demand doesn't make our pricing so wonky? You just involve them in the conversation and help them self-discover this isn't going away. Help them self-discover and explain that the builders went bankrupt and went out of business during the recession for almost a decade. And this is just the long-term effects of not having housing starts for a long time. When they came back, they all went to the luxury market. They abandoned the middle market and the first-time home buyer market. So we had a decade of no homes being built for these first-time home buyers and the move-ups. And it's going to take time. So how long are you willing to wait? How long are you willing to wait and not jump into the market before the interest rates rise? So the buyer, it's really important to just take them through those numbers and like be the economist, the educator, and help them self-discover the interest rate impact and the time. I did the same thing during the recession when it was the opposite was happening. The numbers were plummeting and sellers were like, I'm not writing a check to move. I'm like, okay, well, how long are you willing to wait? And they're like, well, I'm just going to let the market settle down. We'll just give it a little bit of time. I'm like, okay, well, you wanted to move because your kids, you're having another kiddo or it was retirement, something worthy usually. It's like, well, how long are you willing to wait? Well, I'm willing to wait a couple of years. And then you just pull out market stats and trends and say, well, it's going to take, in order for it to be what you want it to be, this could be 5 years. Are you willing to wait 5 years in order to, pursue your goals and your dreams? Well, I'm not willing to wait 5 years. I thought it was just going to correct itself in like a couple of years. But when you just help them understand like why the supply and demand is the way it is, they know it's going to take some time. So that can help with the overpaying, right? Sometimes buyers, here's what I'm going to say. To be a buyer in this market is painful. There's a lot of pain, right? You're like competing in crazy multiple offers, the terms that you have to be comfortable with, and the price you're willing to do. That's huge, right? Here's what I know about motivation with buyers in this market, that the pain of what's causing them to want to make a move has to be equal or greater to the pain of the experience being a buyer. Otherwise, they won't be willing to play to win. So as agents, I want you to have a question in your head when you're talking to buyers, especially, are they willing to play to win? And you're interrogating the pain. Like, why are they moving? What's causing them to make a move? Is it just they want a little bit more updates and granite? Or is baby number 3 on the way, due in May? 2 totally different kind of buyers you have on your hands right there. So when I hear with my team, well, we want something more updated. I'm like, that's not paying. Like, why not just stay and remodel? Why would you jump into this crazy market and, have to compete to win? And this is, just so you have clarity on just how you can qualify and bucket your leads, is really just digging into their story. Okay, well, I love takeaway scripts. We call these takeaway scripts at the Holz group, where I'll just say, when I'm questioning someone's pain, like, do they really have what it takes to play to win in this market? I do a takeaway script where I say, well, why not just stay? Like, moving's a hassle. It's a huge inconvenience. Why not just stay and remodel? Because I'm not, in my head, I'm not convinced that they have what it takes. Sometimes I learn they don't have what it takes. Other times I learn there's a deeper motivation that they didn't divulge to me. Well, we're not going to stay because my husband actually had hip surgery last month and we really want one level living. We just know when we move to one level living, we want it to be updated. Well, now I have a spouse who just had hip surgery and I'm like, tell me about your current home. Does your current home have stairs? They're like, yeah, his workshop's down in the basement and I can't get him to stop going down in the basement. And he doesn't see a problem with it, but it makes me nervous. They don't want an updated home. They need a one level living for safety, right? So takeaway scripts are super valuable, especially when someone's stuck on, well, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to overpay. Well, then why are you even looking on the internet? If these are like web leads, maybe you're running command ads. Like, what has you even thinking about it to begin with? It's a pretty crazy market out there. right? So takeaway scripts are great. They're not expecting a salesperson to say, well, why are you even willing to do it? So because it's kind of like if you've ever done this game, this tug of war where you pull in on something and all of a sudden you let go and they fall forward. Does that resonate with anyone? You're doing the same thing with your language patterns. They're expecting to be guarded. You're the scary salesperson. So their guard is up. They're not being 100% honest because they're just nervous. Stranger danger. That's okay. Our leads have stranger danger too. So if you're feeling that tug of war and that power play, just do a takeaway script and just you pull back. You're like, no worries. I'm like, why? Just curious, why would you even do it? And it creates that pattern where they actually fall closer to you and they divulge things they wouldn't normally have divulged. Because now you're not a salesperson. You're not trying to sell them anything, or you're not trying to sell them a concept. You're just showing up as like curious, like this does. Like, why would you even do it? So does that help with kind of that concept of being stuck? Like, I'm not playing that crazy rodeo. Any other yeah buts you guys have heard that you want to kind of throw out there that we can dive a little deeper on the overpaying? We good? Okay, we're good. Let's go to the unrealistic pricing. And it could be as estimate, it maybe, maybe it isn't, maybe they're just unrealistic. And so the key thing when you hear something like, well, yeah, if I can get 500,000 for my home, then I'd move. In my head, I immediately like, well, is the home, like, are they even realistic? Is the home even remotely close to worth 500, especially if I'm just calling through my database of like an internet lead and I don't have their home pulled up. We're not doing a CMA for everyone, right? So I just like, oh, what caused you to come up with that number? Just stay in curiosity, right? It's like, what caused you to pick 500,000? You may get an answer of, well, that's just what it would take to get me to move in this crazy market. There might be one answer. You may get that, well, that's what my neighbor's home sold for, and I'm pretty close to that neighbor. So I know if they can get it, I can get it. Well, that just told me that I have a pretty savvy lead that's tracking the market, so they're probably pretty motivated. Because people don't pay that much attention to their neighbor's home values unless they're actually thinking about making a move. Versus someone who's kind of flippant. And it's like, well, that's just what it would take for me to make a move, right? The flippant people, I'm like, well, I'm just going to do a takeaway script right away. Like, let's just stop the power play. Just be like, well, why would you even do it? It's a crazy market. Like, why would 500,000? Like, what would $500,000 do for you? Cause you to be competing in this crazy market, and you just want to get them talking. Someone that's like, well, that's what my neighbor. My neighbor sold for $475 and we have a finished basement and they don't have a finished basement. I'm just like, oh, they're tracking Zillow. They're online. I know the behavior. Their behavior is telling me they're very, very motivated. So I'm like, okay, well, tell me more. How often have you been tracking the market, right? Now, I don't know if they're realistic on their pricing until I get there, right? Until I do a full CMA. But just anytime that someone's just kind of throwing a number out there, your comeback's like, oh, well, how did you come up with that price? What have you been doing to track pricing in the market? Now, maybe you're getting this on a listing appointment. You're face to face with a seller and they're like, well, yeah, I would make a move, but the price you're telling me, no way. I know I can get, people are getting 50 grand above asking price. And I know you're saying my home is maybe worth 500,000, but I want 550 because I'm hearing all over the news media that people are getting 50 grand. So I don't like to waste my time. I don't like to play games. So let's just list it at 550 and call it good. Right? So I always like to lead with a question. You're starting to see the pattern. ask questions to unlock their thinking. So I love to do the car shopping analogy questions. So I'm going to take you through a script I use on my listing appointments to make sure people understand how to price. So who wants to role play with me? I need me not to be the only one talking. Who's going to be my seller on my listing appointment, and we're talking about pricing? It can be anyone, even on the screen or in person.
All right, I'll be the seller.
Okay. All right. So we just went through marketing and all the value and all the amazing things we're going to do. So Lori, has anyone talked to you about or explained to you how buyers determine value?
No, no one really has.
Okay. Is it okay if I just take a moment to explain how buyers determine value?
Of course.
Okay. Well, have you ever bought in a car or gone to a car dealership before?
I have.
Okay, awesome. So is it okay if I use that analogy?
Of course.
Okay. So say you go to dealer number 1 and you find a car that you absolutely love and it's $30,000. Would you buy that car right away?
No,
What would you do?
I shop around.
Okay. Very fair. Shop around. So say you go down the street, you go to dealer number 2, same car and same price, $30,000. But now this one has heated seats and a moonroof and Wi-Fi. What would you do?
I'd go with dealer number 2.
How come?
I get more for it.
More value, more for your money. Okay. And let's just say you just need it, to get from point A to point B. You're not into all the technology gadgets. You don't want all the bells and whistles. You really wanted car at dealer number 1. What would you do?
Try to negotiate the price down.
Okay. And how come you would want to negotiate the price down?
I'm not getting all the bells and whistles, even if I just need to get from A to B.
Okay. So what you're doing is kind of comparison shopping. Okay. Well, that's exactly what home buyers do in this market, is they don't just buy the first home they see. They do comparison shopping, either online with pictures, depending on the speed they need to operate at, and or a couple showings. They go into house 1, house 2, house 3, and they're sizing up the bells and the whistles. Except in the housing market, the bells and the whistles are granite, fireplaces, walkout basements, 3-stall garage instead of 2. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So, Lauren, based on what we saw here, if we priced your home at the same as your neighbor's home that has that walkout basement, what do you think the buyers are going to think about?
That's overpriced.
And if they think it's overpriced, even in these market conditions, what do you think they're going to do?
Not buy it.
Now, many sellers have the myth of price it however you want and they will come. And here's the thing, Lauren, my seller, that I'm going to explain to you. These market conditions have trained our buyers to be prepared to come in having to overpay and have amazing terms in order to win. So they're already going to walk into your home conditioned to think, I'm going to need to offer 20 grand over just to get this home. Well, if you price it 50 grand over, and then their psychology is adding another 20, how much overprice are we really in their head?
1,000.
So the people who are winning and getting the 50 grand over asking price is because they priced it based on what the market data was telling them and used the psychology of what's happening with the buyer's mentality right now to win. And that sense of urgency and fear of loss took it from 20 to 50. But if we already add the 50 and bump you to 70 with the psychology, they're actually going to opt out and say, I'm just going to go to the buyer. I'm going to buy the house down the street. So based on that, now knowing how buyers determine value, where do you think we should list your home?
And market and yeah.
So you just help them, and this is really hard even for me. on a listing appointment, I know what the right price is gonna be. I know what it's gonna take to get them the multiple offers, but I have to slow down and present it in a way that they'll understand it. Because if I'm just talking at them, I'm not taking them on the journey. They're not self-discovering along with me. I'm just talking at them. And I'm alienating them, and I'm creating a dynamic of I'm right and they're wrong, which actually pulls us out of rapport. Where if I can just slow down and be patient, which is very hard for me, and just help them self-discover the concepts of how humans determine value and how buyer humans in this market are behaving, and already before they walk in the door, already have a number attached, then I can get them to, just say, oh, okay, I see what you're saying. Now, if they don't see what you're saying, you get to choose as the professional. Well, do you think based on their motivation that they might see the light eventually and listen to you a week in because their motivation is so strong that we'll get there? We just may not get there on day one. Or is their motivation not even there and they're going to suck up your time and energy, and you can professionally stay friends rather than letting them down later? That's your choice, right? For the unrealistic pricing. I'm going to wrap up the last two quickly just because we're at time. Interviewing a couple. I love when people say they're interviewing. Say, great. Most people like you actually interview 2 to 3 agents. Can I be your second opinion? So I just call it my second opinion script. I always like to ask, well, how many agents are you interviewing? Because if I say 2 agents and they already have 2, I just kind of mess that up for myself. So always ask, awesome, how many agents are you interviewing? Okay, well, fantastic. Well, many people actually get 3 opinions given the market conditions. Use the market conditions as the reason why. No one wants to leave money on the table in these market conditions. So can I just be your third opinion? So I love it because that means that they're willing to work with a professional. They're willing to invite agents over and have the conversation. I just got to get myself in to just help them understand they need just one more opinion, right? Already missed the market. This is just where you can really pull out SPAR, the trend lines. SPAR has amazing graphs. So if people are saying, I've already missed the market, pull up the graphs and share the stories that you're hearing at team meeting, right? At our team, we have similar conversations. Our buyer's agent was in competition this weekend. There was 30 offers on one home. Her buyer wrote 20 grand over asking price with appraisal gap language, and they lost. And they weren't even remotely close. So that tells me they haven't missed the market, right? This is just a repeat of last year, but bring the case studies, the sharing, the culture that we have at the Market Center of just sharing the stories, be on the Facebook page, hear what people are experiencing, and then create a case study of it to say, well, actually, can I share with you that this market is just like last year? Can I share with you why I am confident in saying that? And you just borrow someone else's experience that they shared with you at the Market Center to help someone self-discover. And then to create that urgency, to say it's not too late, and we also know this won't last forever. So let's act now so you don't miss the market. It's not that you miss the market. It's just we all know we're at the peak. It's still here based on the case study I just shared. So let's take action today so you don't miss it. So that can help kind of flip their mindset about it. And then if they don't follow your lead, it just goes back to motivation. Maybe they're not motivated enough. There's no script that we can come up with today in this room that will motivate the unmotivated. So hopefully that helps. I think we got through all of our lists. I don't want to be homeless. I don't want to overpay. I think I can ask for anything I want. I've already missed the market and I'm interviewing a couple of agents. So I think we're ready to rock spring market. Yeah. Thank you guys for participating and just sharing with me what you've been hearing. And and the nuggets out there. Because there's lots of opportunity. The market's hot, it's happening. We just have to unlock people's fear, and we're the best people to do that. So, awesome. Have a good afternoon. Thank you for coming and joining on Zoom.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
When you do your payments for
Yeah.
them scenarios,
Mhm.
are you just partnering with your lender to get that, or are you just?